Hello class, Miss Lockhart here. Let's make some 3D flowers. So I'm going to use this green paper and I'm going to cut skinny little strips of paper. They're thin enough to look like stems to flowers. Now your stems could be a little thicker, they can be a little different of course. Notice how I'm really turning my paper when I cut to get a nice curve. So I like to turn my paper and keep my scissors in about the same spot. It helps to cut. So you may do as many stems as you would like. I say try maybe at least 3 different types of flowers. I'll be showing you how to do. I'll show you how to make 5 different types of flowers in this video. Okay, so I'm going to use a scrap piece of paper to put some glue on. Now I'm using liquid school glue. You can use a glue stick. Your fingers might get a little bit sticky during this because we're going to be using a lot of glue to keep our paper down to make it look 3D. So I'm going to put some glue here on my scrap paper and then I'm going to actually just sort of glide the stems through this little dot of glue. It's easier than actually lining the glue up on the back of these tiny pieces of paper. Since they're so small, I like to just slide them over the glue, but you can apply the glue however it best works for you. You might be using a glue stick, in which case you can pull a piece of paper over the top of the glue stick. And notice how I trimmed that little extra length of the left stem I just made. Feel free to trim and adjust these however you need. Definitely make sure that they're nice and gluey on the back so they stay stuck to your paper.
Okay, my stems are attached, and I'm going to make sure they are in the vase. They are. Okay, now I'm going to erase the pencil marks. Now don't erase your pencil marks if there's wet glue on top of the pencil. You're going to just let that glue dry, and then you can cover the pencil line with maybe a leaf or something. But if you try to erase over glue, it's going to get really messy. So, just leave them there until the glue.
Okay, now let's make our first flower. Grab a piece of colorful construction paper and something to color with. I'll be using oil pastels. I like that they have a bright, vibrant color on top of construction paper. You can also use crayons or markers or colored pencils, anything you have at home or at your desk at school. Now, for this next flower, you're going to need to draw a circle. This is going to be a cone. We're going to make a 3D cone using this circle. It doesn't have to be a perfect circle, but do try to keep it more circular and less oval, so we can have a nice, even symmetrical cone. You can even trace something circular if you would like. So then you'll see you'll need to cut it out. Now here's the trick. You want to put one cut right down the middle, like a little Pac-Man almost. Do you see how that cut goes all the way to the middle of the circle? So that when I overlap it like this, watch closely. When you overlap it, it creates a cone, see? So once you see the cone form created from overlapping the 2 sides, you can go ahead and glue those 2 sides together and make sure that the pieces of paper are overlapping each other to create a cone so that we then have a 3D shape. You'll want to hold these 2 pieces together for at least 20 seconds. Sometimes you can hold it even longer if your paper's thicker or if you're just using a glue stick, you're really going to need to hold it together and make sure it stays. I do prefer using liquid school glue for this project, and I recommend you try to use that if you can. It will make it a little bit easier to keep the paper stuck together. It's a little bit stickier of a glue. So now that my cone is stuck, I'm going to put extra glue on the back of it here, and I'm going to attach it to one of my stems for my first flower. So these are fun, made-up flowers, so you can be really creative, and if you have any other ideas of any other types of flowers you want to make 3D, you're welcome to do so. Now, I'm going to draw another flower out with my oil pastel by starting with a small circle for the middle I'm going to do curved lines on both sides here to create a petal. So do one big curve and then another curve on the opposite side. Now you do not want your petals to be too thin or small because it'll be hard to cut them out and it'll be hard to fold them in half, which is what we're going to do. So once we finish drawing our petals, you're going to fold them in half. So keep that in mind when you're drawing them. Don't make them too small. Now I'm going to draw a line down the middle so I know where to fold. And it's okay if these petals are not perfectly symmetrical or even on both sides, but try to make the petals about the same size each if you can. Okay, so then you're going to want to cut out each one of these petals. They do not need to stay together as a flower. They actually need to be individual, so it's a little easier that way. You just cut around these petals and they'll just fall down to the paper. Keep a little collection of them. And don't try to keep the flower shape together because you don't need to. It's just extra work if you try to keep the petals connected to the middle. Just go ahead and keep them separate and cut them apart. And save them because the next step will be to fold those petals in half once it's all cut out. Now I'm going to show you how to create that 3D flower by doing it with these green leaves. The video to the flower that I just made was lost, but that's okay because I'm going to make these leaves to our stems the exact same way I did the petals. I just didn't draw out the flower first. I'm just drawing the shape of the leaves, which is the same exact shape as the petals. So don't worry, you will see in just a moment how to glue down that flower you just cut out. And you'll know how to create the petals also by watching this. So you can cut them out and pause the video if you're working on your leaves, but you probably already have your petals cut out because that's what we just did. So you can fold your petals or your leaves in half. Take a look, gently folding them in half, and see now how they have a 3D effect to them. So continue to fold them, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to fold mark. It doesn't have to be directly in the middle, but have it folded. Okay. Now you can do as many or as few little green leaves as you want. But again, you're probably still working on that left flower. So this is what you do with the little flower leaves or with the flower petals and with the leaves. You put glue on the back. Look here. You put glue on the back where the fold mark is, and you just put it down where you want it. You line it up, and if you're doing the flower, you want to line up those petals evenly around so that it is symmetrical. So the petals are evenly spaced out on both sides of the flower and all the way around so that it has a radial symmetry, which just means the petals are pretty even all the way around in a circular way. So you'll see I'm gluing these leaves now, so I know it's a bit confusing, but it's exactly the same thing, the same steps. If you're doing your petals to your flower or the leaves, fold them and then put glue on the back side where the fold mark is. And so don't forget, you can pause this video if you're still working on either of those things. Now I'm going to go ahead and do a few more green petals. I'll show you again how to do it. You draw your shape. And remember, you don't want it too small because then it gets really hard to fold and glue. Okay, you can cut it out and then fold it and then glue on the folded side underneath. This is great practice cutting and gluing. Okay, so we're about done with our green petals. And, I'm sorry, the orange petals or whatever color construction paper you used for your flower. And you can go ahead and do your green leaves next. And then once you're done with the leaves and the petals, you can go ahead and see how to do another fun flower design in just a second. Don't forget, you can pause the video whenever you need more time. So you can see here, I'm creating this yellow flower with these rectangular shaped petals. So the way you do that is you get a strip of paper and you draw these little lines, see? Now the lines don't go all the way to the other end of the paper because you don't cut all the way through. You just cut the paper about halfway. Now this strip of paper is about 1 or 2 inches wide and then about 5 inches long. And look what happens once you cut those little petals. They look like little tabs. And then you glue it together. Don't forget, you can pause the video. When you glue it, make sure you hold it again for at least 20 seconds so the form stays together. And this form is a cylinder that will soon become a flower. Okay, so once it's glued and it's staying glued together, you can fold these little petals outward. And there you have it, a flower shape. Okay. And then I'm going to make the middle of the flower. I'm going to be making a cone just like we did for the very first flower, just like that red violet one at the top. You draw a circle, and this circle is a little bit bigger than the inside of my flower shape I just made. So go ahead and make a circle a little bit bigger than the inside of the flower's cylindrical middle shape. So you can see I'm not going to just fit it right in. It's a little bit bigger, so it won't quite fit. Instead, I'm going to make it a cone by cutting the middle of that circle and then gluing it together, just like we did the first time. Notice I did use my oil pastels to decorate it with some color. It added texture and color. So now that my cone is glued together, I'm going to put it here in the middle and see if it's big enough. It's pretty big. It looks great. Doesn't have to fit perfectly. And now to glue it down, I'm going to need to put glue on the outside of the cone. And look, this cone is pointing upward instead of downward. The first cone we made, that red violet cone we made, is pointed downward. And this one's upward. So it's pointy on the top. And notice I just put a ring of glue around it to add those petals. So go ahead and use a lot of that liquid school glue so that way you know it'll stay. Now, it's not going to be dry for a good hour at least, so don't pick up your paper until it's completely dry. Leave your paper flat wherever you're working, or carry it flat somewhere to dry. So I'm going to be making another flower now. It's going to be 2 cones. So you've already made 2 cones. This one is going to be the 3rd cone you make, or if you choose to do this cone design, it's going to be a big cone and then a little cone on the inside. So it'll be kind of like a layered flower. These cones are going to be pointed downward, and you'll see in just a second. But go ahead and try it out. Cut 2 circles. And remember, you can use tracers, which would be like a round-shaped object, like a coin or like the lid of something. And look here how I'm making these cones just the way I did the first time, by cutting it down the middle, overlapping the sides, and then gluing it together. And the only difference is that I'm going to make 2 of them, and they're going to stack inside of one another. And you can get really creative and stack more than 2 if you like it, if you like this design. And then I put extra glue down to glue that cone facing downward so the point is toward the paper. And now I'm going to make the smaller cone for the middle, same way as I did before. Put a cut down the middle, overlap, glue together, and then put it where you want it. And look how neat that looks. Okay, so I'm going to make one more flower design. And it's going to be similar to the ones before, except instead of the petals being rectangular, they're going to be pointed because I'm drawing a zigzag line. So go ahead and have a strip of paper and draw a zigzag line going down it. Now remember, don't make your zigzags too small or you'll have a lot of cutting to do. Unless you really want spiky, pointy leaves, you can do little zigzags, but keep it medium size if you want to keep it medium difficult level. And then look how I've created a strip. So I've made it a little thinner, and then I'm connecting the sides, and you'll see a crown shape. So it's like a cylinder, but with points on one side, like a crown that a king or queen would wear. And then you glue it down and fold the petals over, just like we did before. Now, I love this flower design. It's so cute. It makes the petals look triangular because of the zigzag. So now I'm going to do the middle, and this time I'm just going to cut out a circle, and I put a spiral on it. I'm going to leave that flat because the other part of the flower is 3D, so that works for me. And now I'm going to glue down my pointed petals. And there you have it, guys. You can create your own made up design if you'd like, or use some of my designs for your flowers.